Good morning, everybody. It's Felisa, and this is another entry into my car chronicles. This morning, I wanted to talk a little bit about good relationships after mistakes. And the reason I don't want to do that is because even though I'm not really wanting to talk about Sierra and Russell Wilson per se, I do want to talk about the dynamics of their relationship and what that looks like, and how people really have just, I don't know, taken this opinion that just does not make any sense to me. So before I do that, I want to give my disclaimer and say that these are my ideas, my rants, my observations, and definitely my opinion. It may or may not resonate with you, but I hope that you get some kind of nugget from it, and I would love to hear what you think down in the comments. So here we go. So as everybody knows, Sierra married Russell Wilson. What was Sierra's last name before she got married? Anyway, Sierra married Russell Wilson a couple of years ago, and she had a son from a previous relationship. None of this is news. And that relationship was with Future. And they ended their engagement amid allegations of cheating and other stuff, I'm sure, that contributed to the demise of that relationship. But anyway, I don't really care about that. But the idea that Sierra moved on and found another relationship apparently is just too much for a lot of people to take. And it's not even that she found another relationship, it's who she found a relationship with. And people have come out and given all of their commentary and all of their Monday night psychology synopsis for this, and is she with them for the money, and is she able to really be happy, as one guy said, Slim Doug, I think it was. If it wasn't, I'll correct it down in the comment and the description, but said that after being with a quote-unquote bad boy, is it possible for somebody to really want a corny guy, or a straight-laced guy and be happy? And he didn't think so. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, and just and I know a lot of people have come out with commentary, but I think that is one of the most absurd things I have ever heard in my whole entire life, because it leaves no room for growth, it leaves no room for development, it leaves no room to actually have a conversation with yourself and decide that whatever it is that you've been doing is not working for you, and you need to do something different, and try and put those things into place in order to make that different thing happen, which apparently Sierra was able to do. So when I met my ex-husband, I was 17, I want to say. So basically, I was a baby. And, one of the things that appealed to me about him was the fact that he was this quote-unquote bad boy. And, he basically would thumb his nose or middle finger at established authority. And, he pretty much did what he wanted, and he didn't care. And, I found that mildly intriguing only because, and I guess the stereotype is true, as a church girl, as someone who was raised, very sheltered and had very little experience with dating and relationships, and because my parents were divorced, I didn't really have that modeled in my home. My grandparents were really my source of information and my source of observation for relationships, and they had a very good marriage, a very solid marriage that lasted many years. But my grandparents were in their 70s by the time I was born, so really what I witnessed as a child coming up was less about that they didn't do PDA, and of course that was the time that they were raised in. They didn't do a whole lot of superfluous displays of physical affection, but they were very comfortable with each other, and their relationship was very much a partnership. My grandfather took care of the money. He brought the money home, he gave it to my grandmother. My grandmother paid the bills and ensured that things were taken care of in the house. They each had their role to play, and that is what I kind of grew up witnessing as a young person. But just rules of engagement when it came to opposite sex and dynamics and all of those kinds of things, I was severely lacking in that. And so when I met my ex-husband, having been raised kind of in this bubble environment, without a lot of exposure to relationships, other relationships, healthy relationships, it was very difficult for me to really know what to accept and what not to accept. As weird as that sounds. And, I feel very fast and hard for him. And, again, like one of the things that was very intriguing to me was this notion of, we just don't always do what we're told. And I have been raised to do what I was told. So I was a very obedient kid. So this was kind of like, you don't get in no trouble? Okay. Or you don't care about the trouble? Oh, okay. And it was, kind of like I was bad adjacent. So I could, live vicariously through him and, not suffer the consequences. But I suffered the consequences in other ways. So there's that. But anyway, my point for saying all of that was that, as I grew, we got married, we had children, and that bad boy persona, that bad boy tendency that, I don't really care about rules and the establishment and order and governance and all that kind of stuff. I just do what I want when I want to do it. I mean, that was, I'm not even going to say appropriate, but that was more acceptable when I met him when he was 19 than it was when we were 30 and we had 4 kids. Like that's later on that. Like, we got to figure out how we're going to be able to work within the context of this relationship. You're going to have to get a boss because you need to earn money and, all of those kinds of things. And so I quickly grew out of that infatuation with, quote unquote bad boys. And, many women do. I don't know what it is that draws us to that, to that kind of personality type, except to say that opposites really and truly do attract. So, at 30, 31, definitely in my 40s, like, I don't have time for that. I really don't. That's not what I'm looking for. I needed stability in my life. I needed, rational thinkers and rational actors. I needed, the ability to have someone walk me through a problem or concern, with some type of common sense. And, it was not at all appealing to,
you have an incoming call.
It wasn't at all appealing to continue to go through the same nonsense that I had been going through when I was 17. Like, that's not appealing at all. And I would think that Sierra thought the same thing. I mean, by this time, she's a mother. She's getting older. I don't quite know how old she is, but I'm going to put her in her 30s. So the things that she was doing in her early 20s, mid 20s, she wasn't doing that in her 30s. I would hope not. And she had a kid. And so, most of us that are mothers, we don't just go around, lighting it up all the time and, acting like we're just completely single and carefree. We have a responsibility, particularly if we are single. So, I don't understand this tendency to penalize her for, having a child with one guy who she was engaged to, and then discovering that it wasn't what she thought it was going to be, and then going and evolving and working on self and being with a completely different guy. I don't understand why we have the tendency to make women be chained to their choices when we don't do the same thing for men. Men can go out and create 10 different babies by 10 different women, and I'm not saying that it's not a problem, but he will still be able to find an 11th woman who will come in and say, baby, I just love you and I'm gonna take care of you and all these kids, I'm just gonna be a mother figure to them, and do this, that, and the third. And we don't view them as damaged goods. But a woman who has, one child, 2 children, she is somehow damaged, tainted, she is rotten fruit, nobody wants her. It has been amazing to see the type of slander that men who don't know this woman have lobbied at her. And I can only imagine if you do that to women that you don't know, what do you say about women that you actually know and engage with? Women that you feel have a certain type of reputation, that they're not worthy of love, that they're not worthy of redemption, that they're not worthy of, being with a man who can actually love her to wholeness in a lot of situations. But she's unworthy. She's just some harlot. It really is disturbing, the kind of commentary that I have really seen, and I have not seen any of this vitriol lobbied at Future. Future is still out there doing exactly what he wants to do with whom he wants to do it, and he gets none of that flag. But this woman has been married. She's gone on to have another child. She seems happy. Russell seems happy. They cannot leave her alone. They just cannot leave her alone. It is the most bizarre obsession I have ever seen in my life. And then I saw one guy make a comment that it wasn't Sierra per se. It was the fact that regular women now feel like they can do that too. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. Like regular women who have, a questionable or who had a questionable filter as it pertains to, men or whatever in her past, that she somehow was unable to rise above that. That is so concerning to me, and it's so heartbreaking that men actually think so little of us. And it's I could go on, because now I'm starting to think like, the way that we used to be socialized and the way that we used to be raised was to remain virgins until we were married. And men quickly thought that was just like, oh no, I'm not about to be with nobody that I can't sleep with. And so you want to sexualize and objectify women. You want to use them every way but Sunday. They have children because we are the ones that get pregnant, and then somehow we are damaged, we're ran through, we're passed around, and that's something that you don't want to marry. And I'm like, y'all, we all have baggage, we all have a past, we all have a chapter of our book that we don't particularly want to read out loud. We all do. And the trick is to find someone who is willing to deal with you in your mess. But it is amazing to me that the grace that is extended to men is not extended to us in many situations. And of course, I'm being very general when I say that. I'm not being specific. I'm not calling anyone out in particular, but I'm using, of course, Russell and Sierra's relationship and the things that have been in the media, because none of us really know for sure. But the things that have been in the media because of the commentary that I've seen on it, and it's been from men. It is the craziest thing, y'all. Like, seriously, I really wish a man would explain that to me. Why y'all are so bothered and so triggered by this woman going on and being happy, that she somehow was not supposed to do that and she's not worthy of love. And then I was actually engaged in conversation with a guy who, said Sierra was supposed to be the pass around. Said who? Like, what men has she been with? And I asked him, I was like, since what men has she been with? And so he was like, you can look that up. I'm not about to list every man that she smashed. I'm like, so the fact that somebody printed it, the fact that like Gossip or Shade Room or whomever printed that she had been involved with some guy, y'all really thought that was true. Wasn't in the room, didn't have any photographic evidence, didn't see a video, don't know either party, but you read it somewhere and you attributed that to her, and that somehow validates the way that you feel about her. Like that's no different than rumors that are passed in high school or middle school, that somebody is a hoe or somebody is doing this, that, and the third, and you don't know, and you just pick up on it and you just run with it and start perpetuating that nonsense, never verified it, because you can't. You never, stopped a minute to ask yourself if this is true. It just made you feel good about saying it, and so now you damage somebody's relationship or damage somebody's reputation based upon what you heard, and you heard something like fifth-hand knowledge with a little teensy bit of truth to it, little bit, if that. And that stuff irritates my whole entire soul. Like, we got to do better. We are so quick to just jump on a bandwagon of perpetuating a whole bunch of nonsense and really not caring if we ruin someone's life, if we really ruin, their reputation, or unfairly affix a label to them that they did not deserve and they didn't earn. We gotta stop that, especially as adults. But beyond that, I feel like we just need to let people live, let people grow, let people decide what they're gonna do. In relationships are a journey. None of us have it all sewn up. Even if you've been with your mate for years, there are still things that you can find out about them, that you're still discovering about them, that you're still working out. There are nuances involved in that, and those nuances contain levels. So, we just really need to mind our own business, particularly if you ain't got no relationship. You just need to shut up about that. Let people live. I'm Felisa, and I hope that you've enjoyed this vlog. If you have, drop a comment below. Leave some feedback, please. I would love to hear your perspective on this and what you think. And I will talk to y'all later on. Bye.